Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, and pretty chilly neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have a really different episode of Reading with Your Kids today. The book that we are going to be celebrating first is a book that you're not going to read with your kids, but after you read it, you absolutely need to have some conversations with your kids about it. We're going to be speaking with Greta Eskridge. She is here to celebrate It's Time to Talk to Your Kids About Porn. And later in the show, we'll be taking a listen back to a conversation we had with Kerry Gallagher, making sure that you are all up to date with your digital wellness. Hey families, would you like to share a miracle with your kids? At the Wolf Conservation Center, hope was fading. The endangered Mexican wolves dreamed of a pup, but none had come. Until one tiny miracle changed everything. Meet Trumpet, a real-life wolf pup whose incredible birth brought joy, hope, and a lesson in conservation. Trumpet the Miracle Wolf, written by Leocadia George, is a heartwarming true story that will inspire your whole family. Teach your kids the power of hope, love, and protecting endangered species. Get your copy today and join the wild adventure. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Woofy and the Dinosaur Adventures, delightful children's book written by Helen Rogerson. Woofy awakens suddenly to a feeling that his friend Bun needs him. When he arrives at the place his nose leads him, Woofy is confused and doesn't find Bun right away. Then a shout from above leads to an amazing experience as he puts his paleontology skills to work. Together, he, Bun, and a cat that hangs around the site wrap up a wonderful adventure involving a T-Rex skull and a very cool twist of an ending. The story is told in a lyrical style that incorporates actual fossil hunting concepts and vocabulary. If you like dinosaurs, friends who help, and adventures, you will love this book. You can check out Woofy and the Dinosaur Adventures and all the Woofy books at unpackyourownhappy.com. I'm really excited about this interview tonight. It's not that it's going to be a lot of fun, but I think it could be fun. Our guest is a very lovely person, but we're dealing with an extremely important topic, something that we need to be talking to our kids about immediately. Our guest is here today to celebrate her parenting book. I'd call it a parenting book. It's time to talk to our kids about porn. Please welcome to the show, Greta Eskridge. Hey, Greta, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Well, you know, I think it's so important, and I can already imagine what some of the people who are regular listeners to the show are saying. Why do we talk to our kids about porn? That's ridiculous. You don't talk to them, they won't be interested in it, and boy, is that a mistake.
Yeah. I think that's one of the number one responses I get is people are like, well, I don't want to talk to my kids because I don't want to introduce the idea to them. And I think that comes from a place of love, and I understand, but it also comes from a place of not understanding how many places and ways there are for our kids to be introduced to porn. Not even that they're necessarily going to look for it. It's just coming after them.
Amen. And it's not even like in the day when my kids were young, where to access the internet, it was on a laptop or a tower computer where you could put the software on it and you could keep it in a room where everybody else is there, but they still found it, or it found them. And these days, almost every kid has a device in their pocket that not only opens up the world to them, but it opens them up to the world. And there's a lot of people out there in the world that don't have our kids' best interests in mind.
Exactly. Yeah, you nailed it. That is exactly the truth of what our kids are growing up in.
Yeah. So let's talk about, let's start where we are, the prevalence of porn. It's like a virus. It's spreading all over the place.
Yeah. The recent statistic I heard was that by the age of 18, somewhere between 70 and 80% of kids have seen pornography. And again, I would say that's for most of them, it's not because they went looking for it. The first exposure is typically an accident. They are looking for something else online and they accidentally stumble upon it, or a pop-up ad happens when they're on, their tablet playing a video game, or somebody shows them pornography. So they're not going looking for it, but it comes to them. And that's why we need to talk to our kids about it so they know how to respond in that situation.
Yeah. And, I can maybe hear some guys my age, maybe grandfathers, uncles, dads saying, kid looks, I looked at a Playboy when I was a kid. It didn't hurt me. We're not talking about that anymore.
Correct. Yeah. The nature of pornography has changed so much from the era of still pictures in a magazine. That would now be considered soft porn, something that's mild, actually. And now pornography that's being created, one of the biggest problems now is it's not still pictures, it's videos, and very often it's considered or called violent pornography. So our kids are being shown their first exposure to a sexual encounter is something that is full of violence and anger and treating another human being in a terrible way. And it's devastating to a kid to have that be their introduction to sex. And unfortunately, pornography is full of that. So that is why we can't just say, well, it wasn't that big of a deal for me, so I don't need to be so worried about my kids. It's a very different world that our kids are growing up in than we were growing up in.
Yeah. And I'm imagining too, there are some people out there saying, well, absolutely, I am going to sit down with my son and have a conversation about porn. But we have to talk to our daughters about it too.
Yes, for sure. And I think there's two reasons why we need to talk to our daughters. One, we need to talk to our daughters so they don't engage in pornography use themselves, because that is a very big growing group of people who are accessing pornography is girls. It used to be, it was just like, oh, that's a man's problem, maybe a boy's problem, but certainly not for girls. But girls are using pornography more and more. For one reason, they're using it to say, I need to know what's expected of me. So they turn to pornography as like a teacher. And so we need to let them know, like, no, that is absolutely not what is expected of you. And in that case, we need to tell our daughters, like, no one should ever treat you this way. This is not acceptable behavior. You deserve so much better than this. And so we need to talk to them from that point of view, as well as the reason of, hey, you don't need to look at pornography. Just like a guy doesn't need to look at pornography. It's not good for you. It's not good for your body, your brain, and your heart. It's harmful to you and to others. And I want to offer you something better.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. You said it's not good for your body or for your brain. How is it hurting our kids' brains?
Well, pornography is actually addictive, similar to any other kind of drug, like cocaine or something that has an incredibly strong addictive quality. And that's because pornography, when it's used, it releases a hit of the feel-good chemical dopamine, which is something that is not bad. Our body creates it. We need it. We're designed for release of dopamine associated with pleasure. But the problem is with pornography is the dopamine hit is so powerful that, and there's not like a natural end point. So if you're having a traditional sexual encounter and your body releases oxytocin, which is a bonding chemical, and dopamine, which is that feel-good chemical, when the sexual encounter is over, the traditional between two people, real life, face to face, the body is satiated. The brain is satiated. And that's the way the body is designed. But with pornography, that satisfaction isn't there. There is this hunger for more. And then what happens, because pornography is readily available, there is this going back for more. And then you need more and more of this dopamine. And the brain is not so easily satisfied. And so that's when it can become addictive. And it can become not just addictive in the sense that the user wants to use it more and more, but it is not satisfied with what they saw before. And so there is this need for more and more variety and more risky behaviors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really, really scary. And you also said it's bad for the body. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's something that I think is really important for parents to understand as well, because we don't necessarily think about the physical impacts of pornography, but there are a couple examples. For males, there is a growing problem of erectile dysfunction associated with pornography use, because what's happening is the brain is being conditioned to only be aroused by what they see on the screen. And then that has a physical impact on the body of a young man. And so in the past, erectile dysfunction was something that happened to much older men. And now we have 20-year-olds who are experiencing that. And not because there's something wrong with our body in the sense like that, that it's not working correctly. It's just associated with the brain and the use of pornography. They can't be aroused by regular interaction with a real life human being, a partner. It's just what they see on the screen. And so that's a physical problem, but also the problems of depression, anxiety, so much shame that actually impacts the physical body as well, because a person who is using pornography, especially a kid or a teenager, they're experiencing those feelings. And that becomes fuel for harming their bodies, because they're so confused. They don't know what to do. And they're feeling so many negative emotions. And yet there is this desire, this addiction that's pulling them towards doing this thing that they also don't want to do. And it can create so many problems for kids and young adults. And adults as well. But it's really troubling for kids, because I think they are they're so much less capable of dealing with these effects.
That is terrifying to think that a 20-year-old is suffering from erectile dysfunction and is not able to become excited being next to a human being that they care for. And I'm imagining too, it affects the ability for somebody to have that real connection with another human being.
Yeah, and there's even I'm so sad I cannot remember the term right now, but I'm going to find it so you can put it in your show notes. It's just not coming to mind right now. But it basically, when a person is using pornography and they're entrenched in this lifestyle and this addiction, that it actually causes them to no longer enjoy the regular parts of their life that they used to find enjoyable. And that could be like eating a good meal, going out with friends, getting good sleep, things that would normally give them pleasure and joy and excitement. Those become unsatisfying to them. And so there's just this like almost like a darkness coming over them. And that is, again, a physical effect on their body, but also emotional connection starts to wane. And, man, that is such a dark, sad place. We don't want that for our kids.
Do we have any idea of the numbers of kids that are experiencing these really extreme reactions?
I don't have the numbers, and I have not found numbers about addiction, like clinical addiction to pornography in kids and young and teens. But I know just from personal experience, hearing from parents. I hear from moms specifically every single week. I hear from a mom or multiple moms who tell me their kid has been exposed to porn. And then I hear in addition from those moms who say, I didn't know my kid has been using pornography. I don't know what to do to get them to stop. And that kid is trapped in addiction. So I wouldn't say, like, I'm not here to terrify every parent and say, oh, if your kid sees pornography one time, that automatically leads to addiction. That is not the case. However, there are kids who are struggling with addiction. So it is a possibility, and that is something that we want to not have happen to our kids, if at all possible.
I keep talking about these people who be asking you questions, but I'm hearing one of the things that I see online a lot, and it's not on pornography sites, but sites like TikTok and Instagram, and where young women are coming on and saying, "Hey, I'm making bank on OnlyFans. I'm riding high, and I get this car, and I get this, and I quit my college because I don't need college anymore because I can just sit here and make $100,000, $250,000 a year doing porn on OnlyFans."
Yeah. That is, gosh, that's such a hard topic, because there are people who want us to believe that when pornography is being produced, and I believe that pornography is being produced and put out on OnlyFans. It's not just soft porn. That they want to say that if the person creating it is consensual, then it's ethical. And I just cannot come on board with the idea of ethical pornography, because even if you are the one creating it and you're saying, I have control over this, I want to do this, you don't know what the impact of what you're doing is on the person who's consuming it. How is that person going to be harmed by what you're creating? How are they going to maybe go out and harm others? So I don't think pornography is good for anybody. I don't think it benefits the person in the long run who's creating it, even if they have full control and they say they have consent and they want to do it. I just can't see that it is helpful or good for the person making it or the person consuming it.
Yeah. So one of the things we talk about here on Reading with Your Kids a lot is that when we're reading with our kids, it gives us an opportunity to talk about those hard subjects that it would be very difficult to sit down and say, okay, we're going to talk about bullying today. We're going to talk about, and if you're reading a story with a kid, there are characters, there are story plot lines that can open the door to those kind of conversations. How would you suggest that we start our conversation about porn with our kids?
Well, I wish that there were more books that were able to bridge this subject for kids, because I agree with you 100%. We are a huge reading family. I mean, the whole wall in my living room is full of books, and we love books. But there aren't a lot because I think publishers are scared to tackle this subject. And so what I have found is the best that I can do is to start the conversation myself with my kids, and then reinforce the ideas of what we're talking about with other stories we read. So when my kids were young, we started the conversation as simply as, hey, buddy, I need to tell you about something that is not safe for you. And you know, it is my job to keep you safe. And so I need to tell you about this thing called pornography. And I would use the real word. And there's several reasons why. One of them being that they don't associate all kinds of negative and scary things with pornography like we do, especially if they're young. They probably have not had an exposure. So they're not carrying the weight that we are. But also it's empowering for our kids if somebody were to ever show them pornography, that if they know what it is and they know the name, they know what to call it, then they have more power. Their story has more power when they share it with us and when we share it with others. So it gives them a layer of protection. So tell them what it is. It's this thing with pictures or movies of people who have no clothes on. They're showing their privates. We know that we keep our privates private. So if you ever see movies or pictures like that, maybe you will see it if you're on your iPad or your tablet and you're playing a game, or maybe if you're looking up something on my computer on Google, or maybe someone shows you on their phone at baseball practice or at school, or somebody's older brother or sister. What I want you to do if that happens, I want you to turn off the tablet, close the computer, or tell the person who showed you, I don't want to look at that. And then you walk away and you come find me or dad or grandma or grandpa, someone who's safe, as soon as you can, and let us know, I think I saw pornography, and we will help you. So that conversation takes like 2 minutes. It's quick, and you give them the least amount of information possible to keep them the most safe. And then, like I said, you begin to fill their minds with stories of people who are honoring others, seeing them as whole people, admiring them not just for the way they look or what they can do for you, but admiring and appreciating them as whole people with brains, with creativity, with humor and ideas. Like, that's what we want to fill our kids with. That is the antidote, the opposite of what pornography is.
Yeah. And I would add to that, please tell me if an adult shows you
Yes.
this, because that's very, very important. And that is unfortunately very prevalent too.
It is. That pornography is used as a grooming tool by a lot of adults, whether that could be in a relationship with someone you know, because the majority of childhood sexual abuse comes from a person that child knows. But that also happens online. So if your kid is a teen and they're on a social media site, or they're playing video games with strangers, lots of games now you play with a person that you don't know, and you're on the same video chat on your game that you're playing, or on social media, and pornography will be used in those spaces as well to groom a 12-year-old, a 15-year-old. That is not an uncommon thing.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've been hearing that's happening to young teens, especially guys, is they're getting, I don't know if the word, they're sextortion.
Yeah.
Where they, somebody comes online and they develop a relationship, and it's like, hey, send me a picture. Mm-hmm. And they do. And then they come back with, hey, you got to give me money. You got to do this or that, or I'm going to expose this. And those kids are committing suicide, getting also. Does being exposed to pornography make those kids more vulnerable to that type of crime?
I don't know if necessarily being exposed to pornography makes them more vulnerable. Sometimes, really, I think what makes them vulnerable is no one's talked to them about it. They haven't talked to them about pornography, given them an escape route if they're shown it, because that could be the grooming tool that is used in many sextortion cases, or they've never had anybody talk to them about sextortion itself and what to do if it happens to them. because the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they say that this epidemic of sextortion is one of the biggest problems facing, especially like you said, teenage boys today. Their prefrontal cortex is not developed. They're immature emotionally, and they're not ready for that kind of interaction, that kind of proposition. They react. Somebody says, oh, this person that they think is a really cute, 15-year-old girl messaging with them says, I'm going to send you a picture, but you send me one first. And they make a foolish decision in the moment. And then that person reveals who they really are.
Yeah.
I'm some guy from some other place. And if you don't give me $500 right now, I will tell everybody what you've done. You've sent me this picture. And so it's really about that parent talking to their kid when they're younger and saying pornography is something that you need to be careful about. Here's what to do if you're exposed. Because maybe if that parent had said that to their child before this encounter happened with, them thinking it's a 15-year-old girl messaging them, then that kid would have an awareness. Or I would say not just or, I would say and they've talked to them when they're a little older about sextortion and given them an escape route for that too. A knowledge of this could happen and here's what you need to do. You're not in trouble. I want to protect you. I want to help you. This is a dangerous situation.
Yeah. Greta, I didn't ask you this earlier. You seem like such a sweet mom. How did you get into this?
There's a lot of different reasons. I think, I always say that I have 4 kids, so I have 4 reasons. So my own 4 children, I definitely wanted to protect them and give them tools to reject pornography and to choose something better. But even before that, before my husband and I had our 4 kids, pornography impacted our life personally. My husband confessed to a pornography addiction, and that set us both on the path to healing and to getting, help with the addiction, and for my husband to eventually be able to walk away from that and to move into helping others who struggle with the same thing. That's what he does now. And I have decided okay, well, first it was, I'm going to help our kids. And then what I found when I started learning more about pornography and the addictive qualities and the harm that it does, I wanted to learn more because I wanted to help my husband and I wanted to understand his addiction and what pulled him in and how he could get out. But then I also was like, oh, I want to help our kids so they don't have this same struggle in their life. But what I found was there weren't a lot of moms talking about this. And we were all raising our kids who were growing up in this time where they could be exposed to things and we needed to give them tools, but nobody was talking about it. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm the girl for the job. So here I am.
Well, I think we just scratched the surface. This is, this really is an important topic. It's only going to get more important for families to have these conversations because it's not going away. The availability of porn is just going to grow and grow and grow, and we need to be able to talk to our kids about it. A great way to start is to pick up a copy of It's Time to Talk to Our Kids About Porn. And I think folks should also, we should also tell them where they can go to find out more about the book, and find out more about you, and maybe find out some other resources.
Yeah, please do. You can get the book anywhere books are sold. It's on Amazon. It's at Barnes & Noble. Walmart even has it on their website. Thrift books, I just discovered if you like to buy used books, the book is brand new, but you can still get it on thrift books. It's everywhere. And there's an Audible version. I read the audiobook. So if you're a person who likes to listen to books in the car or while you're, out on a walk, you have that access. And as far as following me and getting information from me, more resources, I am most active on Instagram. You can look for Greta Eskridge on Instagram. I'll pop right up. And I have a website, gretaeskridge.com, where you can get all of this info and you can listen to my podcast. I talk to lots of guests about this topic and other things, books. I love talking about books as well. So, yeah, those are all ways that you can find me. And I will send them all your way so you can put them in your show notes.
Awesome. We've had a really eye-opening time speaking to the author of It's Time to Talk to Our Kids to talk to your kids about porn. Our guest has been Greta Eskridge. Greta, thanks so much for being with us, and thanks for writing this book.
Well, thank you for being willing to have the conversation. It's so important, and I'm really glad you're sharing with your community.
This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Marie Nichols was recently on my Connecticut Book Festival's podcast, and what a delightful woman. One of the things she said really struck home with me. She said, parents nurture with care, siblings are taught to share, but grandparents embrace the dares. We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest is a colorful, fun-filled book where this grandmother dares to embark on a wild journey with her grandson into the dinosaur forest. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on bookshop.org. You and your kids and you and your grandkids are going to love this book. It's We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Join us once again from right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. Our guest is here today to talk to us a little bit about keeping our kids safe online, a little bit about AI, and all sorts of really fascinating stuff. Please welcome back to the show, Kerry Gallagher. Hey, Kerry, how are you?
Hi, Jed. Thanks for having me. I'm great.
I'm so happy that you have been a regular guest here on the podcast because the world of technology is changing, as we would say here in Boston. It's changing so like wicked fast, and it's like wicked awesome, but it's also kind of terrifying, and it's hard to keep up with. And since you are an expert at keeping up with this stuff, I really am happy that you're sharing your knowledge with us.
Yeah, I really love keeping up with this stuff. I find it something that draws me in lots of different roles in my life. So it's a passion that I have, and it's something I love to talk about. So I'm grateful that you're giving me the opportunity to do that today.
Yeah. So let's just share real quickly. In addition to being a mom, you are also, you have a bunch of different hats. So tell us a little bit about what you do so folks know that I'm not just talking to somebody off the street here.
Yeah. So mom of two girls, they're 12 and 15. So I'm very much in the throes of like the middle school, high school age, which is really where the rubber meets the road in terms of our children learning and experimenting with technology. I also am a school administrator. I'm the assistant principal for teaching and learning at a boys' school that serves grades 6 through 12. So I parent some girls, and I spend all day, every day with boys. I even had a couple of hours working with some boys this morning as part of my role and talking about focus and concentration and the role that technology plays in that. And then I have the privilege of serving Connect Safely, which is an internet safety nonprofit based in Palo Alto, California, as their education director, which means I am able to help produce content that's specifically directed at educating parents and teachers on kind of the latest research when it comes to digital wellness. And then I also produce lots of lesson plans and other content that we make available for free on our website that anybody can use.
Yeah. So you and I were chatting a little bit about this new thing that everybody's hearing about, this AI, and it is it's here and it's growing and it's wonderful and terrifying. So let's talk about the wonderfulness and the things that we should be worried about.
Yeah. So I would say for your audience, if you haven't used AI yet, I really urge you to give it a shot. And some of the really entry-level, easy ways to use it to give you a sense of what it can do for you would be to, hop into Google's Bard or hop into ChatGPT, create an account with an email address. You know how all of us have like the throwaway email address where we sign up for things, right? So use your throwaway email address, sign up for it. It's not a place where you store a lot of personal data. So you can be a little more relaxed about that, although that's always a concern when we sign up for anything to keep in mind. But once you're in there, if you're like me and you're a working mom with very busy kids and also someone who's trying to, maintain a marriage and friendships and my own fitness and still keep your head on straight, I recommend asking it for a week's worth of dinner recipes that are only 30 minutes each, along with the grocery list, and have it produce it and just see what it does for you. If you are interested, it's January right now when we're recording, Jed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're starting to plan your summer vacations. That's definitely happening this time of year for people like me who have families. And you have a sense of where you want to go. Let's say you want to go to Colorado to hike in the mountains this summer. Type that into the AI. Say, help me plan a trip to Colorado for hiking. Make sure I'm able to make some stops for great food along the trip. Type it in, see what it produces for you. Those are two really normal tasks that families engage in that take a lot of brain power. Mm-hmm. And the AI can be the brain to get you started on those tasks. Of course, you're going to have to make modifications and adjustments that meet your needs based on maybe food allergies for the meal plan or maybe ingredients that you're not a big fan of. And you may need to make adjustments to the vacation plan based on finances, or maybe the differing abilities of members of your family and where they have to navigate to. But you can do that after you have that initial plan. And so that's how I would suggest that people get started to get a sense of what the benefits are.
Yeah. I tell you, the first time I used it, somebody had asked me to send them a bio. I was going to be part of an event, and that is probably my least favorite thing to do, is write a biography about myself. And there was one on my website that was kind of old, and I thought I have to update this. So I just put in the chat GPT, write a bio about Jed Lee, also known as Jed Doherty, host of Reading with Your Kids podcast and educational magician. And what it spit out was amazing. It was perfect except for one line. It said, I grew up in a small town where I developed a love for reading. And that wasn't quite right. But otherwise, everything was perfect. And then I just went up, and it didn't shock me because I do have a big presence, with 1,900 podcast episodes. There's a lot of stuff about me out there. So then I gave it another test, and I asked it to write a bio about my beautiful wife. And it was 85% accurate. And my wife has zero presence online. And so it just, talk about mind exploding. It just blew me away.
That's one of the pitfalls too, is that when it produces something, we should not have an expectation that what it produces will be perfect in terms of accuracy or in terms of providing everything that we need, right? The AI is just another online tool. It isn't meant to replace humans really at all. It is artificial intelligence, right? It isn't human intelligence. And so I think one of the narratives that I'm hearing is like, oh, AI is no good because it produced this with this bias, right? Or it produced one of the things that AI is really terrible at is solving simple math problems. Like, it didn't solve this math problem accurately, so AI is terrible, right? And it's not that those flaws make it terrible. It's that we, as the human consumers or users of technology, need to know what its strengths are and where, it's like tweaks need to be made or where its weaknesses are, and then use it accordingly. Yeah. So, I would much prefer, I'm using my laptop right now because I'm on a video call with you and the screen is bigger and the lighting is better and all of that. I would not use my phone for this type of high quality recorded video that you're trying to do, but I would use my phone for a FaceTime call because the quality is not quite as important and it allows me to be mobile while I'm on the phone with somebody. So it doesn't make my laptop better than my phone or my phone better than my laptop. It's different tools for different tasks. And that's how we need to think about AI. What are the tasks that AI is best suited for us to use as humans? And we can discern when it's a good fit for what we need.
Yeah. Now, you were sharing with me some of the things that we should be concerned about or aware of when it comes to AI. Talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, so I would say one of the concerns that I have is bias. We know that in the media that we're consuming, there's a great deal of bias related to how humans are portrayed. So that could have something to do with race. It could have something to do with gender. It could have something to do with socioeconomic class. Remember that the AI is producing answers to your questions or responses to your prompts based on the data that it is able to kind of scrape, to find. So that data that it's using to produce the answer was produced by humans who have inherent biases in what they've put online. So know that it is still important for us to use our media literacy skills to look at whether there is a bias in what is produced related to all of those social justice concerns that we're always aware of before we use the output of the AI. We need to add in information that's important to try to reduce the amount of bias in whatever we're using that for, whether it's in our work or in our personal life or helping us to understand ideas. We need to be aware of that. The second thing is that the examples that I shared of like those entry-level uses of AI were mostly based on text entries and text outputs. But there are really much more advanced, mostly paid AI tools at this stage. They may become free over time that are able to produce images. And as a result of that, we know that it is becoming easier for some bad actors online to produce some pretty scary stuff, in particular child sexual abuse material. So this is the type of material that is often used in sextortion schemes that are mostly targeting teenagers. So a bad actor will use a compromising photo of a child who is underage, and let that child know that they are going to release or publicize that image if they're not compensated with money or gift cards or Bitcoin or something like that. So in the past, sextortion has primarily been done when a child is kind of talked into sharing a compromising photo of him or herself. Now the bad actors can create that compromising photo using the AI. And so it makes it harder for us to prevent it from happening, but it is important for us to continue conversations with our children about what to do if it happens to them so that they know what steps they can take and not feel like they're trapped or that they're going to be in trouble. And if you'd like, Jed, I can talk about what parents can talk to their kids about and what steps they could take.
You were just like AI. You predicted the next letter that was going to come from me.
Yeah. So I think this is what I do with my kids. I often, because I have a 15-year-old, I often end up with a car full of 15-year-olds, right, her friends, because of carpools that I'm sure you've engaged in your life that I'm in the thick of right now. It's going to happen this afternoon after work. I will bring it up. I have this group of girls in my car and they are trapped, and I will, they're inevitably going to be on their phones, and I'll be like, oh, what are you looking at? Tell me. And I was like, have you ever been messaged by someone that you didn't know? And like, what did you do? And they're all like, oh yeah, of course. Right. Cause it happens on all the social media platforms that they're on. And I'll say, have you ever been messaged? And it's like kind of scary, like what they say, like it's really weird or it gives you the creeps. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I just block him. And I'll say, has anyone, so I try not to make it personal. Bell, because I'm at school. Has anyone ever like been texted a picture of them that's like a kind of sensitive picture or private picture? And they'll be like, no, like, because initially their reaction is that they're uncomfortable. And I'll be like, well, you probably do know someone that it's happened to because it happens a lot and they just may not have been comfortable telling you. But if it ever happened to you, what do you think you would do? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't, I don't know. Like I would just block them. And I'd be like, well, what if they just make another account and they message you again? Because that's a common tactic, right? They just create these bot created accounts. And what I'm trying to dig down to is that it may happen to them, or if it doesn't, it probably will happen to someone that they know. And that because I brought it up, they should feel comfortable coming to me and I won't freak out because I'm demonstrating to them by having the conversation and by one who's leading with comfort, leading with facts, leading with frankness in the conversation with them, that they can come to me and I won't blame them, right? I won't freak out on them. And then what I have said is I will make it stop. So you can always come to me. I will make it stop. And adults, the way you make it stop is you literally call 1-800-CALL-FBI. I think as adults, and just because we're raised and built and grown and groomed in these like hierarchical systems where you don't go right to the top, right? So people think of the FBI as like just going right to the top, and I should go to my local police first and all of that stuff. The truth is that most of these schemes are across state lines and even across national lines. And so our local police, who do a wonderful job within their jurisdictions at the specific types of incidents and conflicts that they're trained to do not have the resources to handle this type of crime. It is a federal crime, and we should go directly to the federal law enforcement agency in order to get the fastest response to protect ourselves and our children. And if you report it very quickly, they may already know about this perpetrator, and you're adding evidence to an ongoing investigation that helps them get further down the line. And they're the ones who can stop it from happening. Also, I think it's worthwhile opening up a conversation with your child's school before this happens, because one of the things that these perpetrators will do is threaten to send the compromising photo, whether it's real or AI created, with the principal or with the school. And you want to make sure you get the school's assurances that the child who's depicted in the photo is not going to get in trouble because they didn't do anything wrong. It's the criminal that did something wrong, and that school will do everything that they can to partner with and support that child and that family as they, get a partnership with law enforcement, potentially get that child some counseling or therapy if they need support, if they've been traumatized, and move through all of that. So those are the steps that I've taken, like with the school where I work. I have made sure I've shared that information with the parents of the students that I serve. I've had these conversations with my children. And I honestly, Jed, I fully expect that first of all, we have had students who reported to us that it's happened to them, and we as a school have responded the way we've promised. It has been many that it has happened to. It has nothing to do with the community that you're from, how wealthy you are, whether or not you're a quote unquote good kid. These perpetrators target everyone. So number one, that's what we've done as a school. And number two, I continue to have these conversations with my children over and over, no matter how many eye rolls that result from them.
Well, it's perfect in that. Just think about some of the scandals that we've lived through in the not too distant past involving big institutions, both religious and secular. And if parents had taken that stance of, come to me, you're not going to get in trouble, I'm going to believe you, a lot of the horror that so many people experience would have been prevented or would have been dealt with in a much better way. So I'm really happy that you're sharing that. It's really important. And I love the fact that you are taking advantage of one of the tools that I loved having as a parent, the minivan. It's a godsend. People think, oh, you're going to drive a minivan. I loved it because you had the kids, you had a captive audience, and if you didn't want to say anything, you just keep your mouth shut and you just listen and you find out everything that's going on in your kid's life.
Yeah. No, it is really great. The more you can pile your kids into a car or other kids. And then of course there's like the network of parents, right? The moms and dads who then I can like say like, hey, when they were in the car with me, this is what we talked about. So just know, like, if you want to bring it up, I've already kind of broken the ice. Mm-hmm. So, not all kids, it's funny. My kids are sometimes like really grateful that I know so much about all of this, and other times they're not because they can't get away with things as easily. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times, because of this work that I do, the other parents are really grateful that I'm the one who started the conversation so that they don't have to. And it makes it so that when it does happen, we've already gone there. They already know what's going to happen. I already know what's going to happen. And there isn't as much fear, or there's definitely going to be emotion tied to it, of course, because it is like an invasion of your privacy and a lack of control over your own identity. But those emotions will be tempered with this sense of like assurance that like, we already know we're going to partner together on this. We already know we're going to work together to solve this. And we already know we're going to come out the other end, and we're still going to be like a strong parent-child team because we've talked about how we would handle this. So,
you know, you mentioned that a lot of the people in your parent circle are grateful that you brought this up. I'm imagining that there may be a parent out there somewhere that's going to be like a lot of parents when it came to drugs and all these other scary topics said, I don't want my kid talking about that, and you shouldn't have brought it up. And how can you gently say to that parent, dude, you got to deal with this?
Yeah, I think if their child has a phone, which they all do, or if they have a child who has friends who have a phone, if they've somehow held back from getting, then they have a social media account, right? And if they have a social media account, no matter how locked down it is likely that they have received a message, a private message or direct message from someone that they don't know already. And if they haven't, because they're brand new to social media, let's say they're just, the age at which you're legally supposed to be getting social media is 13. But most kids are getting social media around 10, some even younger than that now. So if it's even better to have the conversation before they create their account and just be like, what if you get a message from someone you don't know? Like, we're going to do our best to make sure that you don't, by the way we set it all up. But what are you going to do? And they know that adults want them to say block them. So that's fine. Just be like, okay, block them is the right answer. But what if it keeps happening? Mm-hmm. Then what? Right? You have to play the tape forward and keep having these conversations. What I would say is that it's best to have the conversations proactively than reactively. So in the same way, you asked about drugs and you asked about, sex and drinking and all of those same things. I think my parents were more proactive with those conversations with me. My friends' parents were not. Mm-hmm. And I think that just kind of watching me and my friends grow up, I learned that the proactive conversation is better. Mm-hmm. So I would just urge parents to do those things proactively. Also, like, if you are feeling like I don't know anything about these social media platforms or how these messages even come through or what they look like, please go to connectsafely.org and go to our guides. We have a guide to TikTok. We have a guide to Snap. We have multiple guides to Snapchats, to different parts of Snapchat, because there's different ways that kids use Snapchat. We have guides to Instagram, and I would say those are by far the top 3 platforms. Those are the ones that your kids are going to be asking for first. Read the guide, create an account for yourself, play around with it, have fun. I love TikTok. It's great. Great for a brain break when I need it.
You were mentioning, kids receiving messages. I was at physical therapy not too long ago, and a gentleman who may have been a little bit more elderly than I, so about 110, was saying to the therapist, I just get this message. Someone sent me a message. It was the wrong number, but they were so friendly, and they said sorry to bother you, and I'm like, dude, that's a scam. They're gonna stop. Just stop. Block them. Don't communicate with them, because that is a person that has evil intent.
Yeah. The other thing that I think the sort of generations that have been around a little bit longer than I have is that they've been sort of trained on the idea that you can only believe what you can see. So things that are like videos are more believable. Things that are images are more believable. So if there's a photograph, you can trust that it's true. If there's a video of it, you can trust that it's true. And I would say that is not true anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, not true anymore. So what you see in terms of video, even if it's reported from a reputable news source, if internally you're like, that's unbelievable, like, is that real? You should do what we call lateral reading to check to see if it's real, and not just check one other source, check like 3 or 4 other sources to find out if that image is real. Because of AI, even prior to AI creating custom images for us, the video and photo editing tools had gotten so advanced that we already couldn't trust it. But the skill level it required to use those video and editing tools was also pretty advanced. So there weren't that many people out there who could do that kind of editing. Now anyone can do it, and it's so easy with AI. So even more so, we have to be really critical readers and thoughtful and look for things like bias and believability, and remember that everyone is just a human, right? So if it looks like it's unlikely that a human would be able to do something that they're saying, or if it looks like it's unlikely that a human would, be able to be healthy on that kind of food or exercise plan, then it's probably not true. Yeah. And they're probably not giving you the full picture.
Yeah. Well, we just had experienced here in the Northeast. There was a robocall that went out using President Biden's voice. And
yes, in New Hampshire.
It was a scam. It was AI created, and it wasn't believable. So, Kerry, can you repeat where parents can go to get more information about social media and about AI and all the other great things that you've helped create?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. So it's connectsafely.org. Connect Safely is all one word, .org. And if you click on, we have lots of information right on the homepage, but if you click on guides, you'll see it'll drop down. There's lots of different guides. There's quick guides. There's longer ones if you want to read a little more deeply. And then I just love to put a plug in for Safer Internet Day. It's the first Tuesday in February every single year. We have lesson plans and materials for teachers to use to really mark and celebrate Safer Internet Day. And this year, we've released brand new lesson plans on artificial intelligence that are specifically targeted we have a middle school lesson plan and we have a high school lesson plan. So if you're a teacher out there and you're trying to figure out what is my role in helping the students that I serve understand how artificial intelligence could be used and shouldn't be used from an ethical lens, these lesson plans are for you. Check them out. Use them in your classroom, and then let us know how it goes, because we're really excited with that sort of new release of AI learning and AI literacy, which is kind of the next media literacy that has come upon us.
So very important. Kerry, I think, you and I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. There's so much going on. I appreciate you coming in and sharing this with us. Will you come back in the not too distant future? Because we know things are going to change and, tomorrow.
Yeah, I would love to. And I always appreciate your invitations in these conversations. Thank you so much, Jed.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Folks who really care about you and your kids. Greta Eskridge. Please be sure to check out It's Time to Talk to Your Kids About Porn. And we also want to thank Kerry Gallagher for having a listen back to our conversation that we had with her about this time last year. We're going to have Kerry back on in the very near future. Keeping our kids safe online is oh so very, very important. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.